Alright, so we've got our cutting board pretty full of veggies. No more veggies to put on there. There's one more selection tool which I haven't covered, and that's a color-based selection. Although I hate to say it's a color-based selection because it's a combination of two. But in any case, I'll show it to you anyway. It's probably the most powerful, biggest change. This is CS3 you're looking at. You guys are working with CS5. A great addition to CS3. So once you start using it, you'll agree with me. That's a pretty powerful tool. So what we're going to do is, I showed you different ways on how to select the carrot with the freehand tools, the magnetic lasso, so on and so forth. Here's the other tool I want you to use. I want you to right click on the magic wand tool, and I want you to go to something called the quick selection tool. What this tool does is a combination of pretty much two tools. It's a color selection tool first, but it also has some magnetic things to it as well, the magnetic lasso tool pieces to it as well. Notice it's a brush. So basically we're going to paint a selection on here. You've got the quick selection tool. Then you've got these three buttons which we're going to use in a quick second. One is just a reel. That's a new selection. Next one is add to selection. And the last one is subtract from selection. So we don't have to worry about those keyboard shortcuts we talked about before. I'm going to say add new selection. And we have this brush palette. And this is kind of the most powerful thing about the quick selection. This allows you to paint a selection on. But it's going to be selected based on color. So the diameter of the brush is everything. So for this particular carrot, we're going to use the 21 pixel brush. And we'll keep the rest as it is. And what I want to do is I'm going to zoom in. I'm going to click off that menu and I'm going to zoom in to where the carrot is, give or take. And go back to the quick selection. And now I'm going to start painting on the carrot. And notice what happens. I keep my finger on the mouse button. I'm not clicking the mouse button. I'm just painting through the carrot. And the quick selection tool actually works pretty slick. It grabs your carrot exactly on the lines that it should. We'll use the quick selection tool for a bunch of different selections. But I want you to focus over here on the layers palette. In essence, we haven't used layers at all to help us out with the veggie cutting board here. So I am going to basically take this carrot, now that I've selected it, I'm going to cut it out of this picture. Control cut, or you can use Control X on the keyboard, and then I'm going to paste the carrot back into the picture. And you notice, kind of weird, the carrot moved a little bit. Let me move that back. So a combination of stroke keys. I'll refill my hole a little off, but I can move it up and over, get an exact fit. Close enough. There we go. You'll notice over here though that I've created a new layer. So just the carrot is on that layer. So for us to keep everything organized, I would double click on where it says layer 1 and type in carrot. So now I have a carrot layer. I'm going to click on that carrot layer because what I'm about to do, I want only to affect the carrot. Now the difference between putting everything on layers and just doing selections, I could do what I'm about to do if I just selected the carrot too. But when we start talking about layer styles only affect one layer. I'll get back to that in a second. So here's this carrot. I've got it on its own layer. I'm going to go up to image and I'm going to adjust some color. I'm going to adjust the hue and saturation of the carrot. I want it to look, my goal here is I want it to look a little bit more orange. So I've got my hue saturation palette, and you notice you slide on these things and you can do all kinds of funky things with your carrot in terms of color and lightness and darkness and transparency. So keep the lightness at 0. That's a very dangerous setting. Let's just look at this real quick. I'll give you some settings to make the carrot look a little bit better. We want to go +5 on hue. So I'm just going to go +5 there. And saturation, we want to go 10. Actually, I want to go +10. So I'm going to put a +10 in there. And you'll notice it brings out a little bit more of the orange in the carrot. So I click OK there. So again, changing things to a layer helps out a ton. And what I'm going to do now is actually go through and pull everything into its own layer. So I'm going to zoom out. This will take a few seconds here, but I'm going to keep using the quick selection tool, and I'm going to paint into, oh, here you go with that mistake. Look what happened. I started painting, and immediately on the quick selection, I could tell you that something's going on here. Quick selection tool is not working for me. I look over here on the layers palette. Oh, that's why I'm on the carrot layer. I don't want to be on the carrot layer. I want to be on the background layer. So I'm going to click on the background layer. Let's get rid of that selection. Now let's see what happens. I start painting on the lettuce. There we go. And it'll actually add to the lettuce selection. Quick selection tool works pretty cool. If I wanted to add to this selection, I would just click on the add button. If I wanted to subtract, I would click up on the subtract from selection button if I really wanted to. So with these 3 selection pieces, you can pretty much get all the pieces you want. So there's my lettuce. I am going to cut. I'm going to use my keyboard shortcuts now. So I'm going to Control X, and then I'm going to Control V to paste. Drag that up in there. Place it where I want, close enough. I got a new layer right here. Double click. I'm going to call it lettuce. I won't do all of it. You can if you'd like. There's a couple more pieces I want to show you here. There's also pieces of a selection that will allow you to save, and you'll get to this point in another lab at some point about saving a selection. But I'm going to click back on my background, and I'm going to grab my quick selection, and I'm going to select my bell pepper. And basically you see that the selection has that shimmering line around it, so basically allowing you to say, I have selected the bell pepper. What I want to do is save this selection, so therefore I could use this selection again. If I go up to the select menu, I can say save selection, and I call it bell pepper, and I'll click OK. If I shut this panel down, I won't now because I haven't saved it, but if I shut this panel down and restart this file, this image file, start.psd, or veggies is probably what you called it, and I wanted to load, let's get rid of that selection here, I wanted to load that selection again. And I say, oh, that's right, I save that selection. I go to select. Now load selection is available, and there's bell pepper right there. I click OK, and there's my selection for bell pepper. So you can actually save selections within an image, and if you keep it as a Photoshop file, if you save it as a Photoshop file, that selection piece will travel every time with that image file. It's a pretty cool feature. You may figure out where you're going to use it and how you're going to use it, but you'll see very quickly that it's powerful in terms of allowing you to save the selections. So we're going to deselect. I'm going to go back to the lettuce, and now that the lettuce is on its own layer, I can now go to layer style, and I have all these options available for me to impact that lettuce layer. I'm going to put a drop shadow on there. You'll notice the drop shadow panel comes up. If you notice the lettuce, you can see it. And typically most drop shadows will go down to the right, so 120 degrees is a good shadow. I'm going to go up to normal here, and you'll notice the drop shadow will start affecting the lettuce. So I'm going to put some distance out on it. We'll add a little bit. So let's go, what's that, 15? We'll go 10, 0, and then size I'm going to change to 10 as well. And then click OK. And you'll see the drop shadow form on the lettuce. Let's say I want the same drop shadow idea to affect the carrot. You'll notice the FX down here. If I move the effects to the carrot layer, I'm just clicking on the effects label and moving it to the carrot, it actually moves the effects layer. But if I hold down the Alt key and I move it up to the carrot layer, it actually copies the effects level. So now I've got the drop shadow on the carrot as well. You could go ahead, if you had all your layers now, all of your veggies were in their own layers, you could add the drop shadow to each one and so on and so forth, and you'd get the final finished product. But that's it for this unit. There's one other piece I want to cover real quick, which I think is good for you to see. I'm going to close this down. Save it if you want. Save your veggies. I'm going to close mine down. I'm all good with this. I'm going to say no, and I'm going to open up the start again. Give it a few seconds, and I want to basically go into the automate, under file, automate, and just quickly do this, crop and straighten photos, and you'll see what this one little piece does. It's pretty cool. Give it a few seconds, and if you notice it's working. The automate tab, by the way, we don't cover in this class, but if you can ever fumble around with the automate and see what's possible in terms of automation, you'll be amazed at what you can do. So you look at this and you say, what did this thing do? Holy smokes, it took this picture, and if you notice, I've got a copy of each one of the veggies. What's under there, and the buttons under there. So in essence, it took this start file. It said, oh wait, there's this white background. It must want me to get everything and then separate everything as part of the picture and then separate them into their own pictures. We could have made this whole veggie board that way as well. We really could have. Automate feature, very cool feature. And again, I'm not going to cover it heavily in class, but very cool feature in Photoshop. As in terms of what I use for work, I use the Automate quite a ton to change a bulk load, to do things in batch and in bulk and those kinds of things. But I just wanted to show you that little neat step right there. End of the unit. On selections, hopefully you got your question set filled out. If you were looking around, you obviously saw some text that I was writing in on the image to allow you to help you to answer the question set as well. Hope it went well. We'll talk to you in a bit.